house, all of my storybook adventure friends. Hope you are ready to continue reading book number 4 of Anne of Green Gables, Anne of Windy Poplars. And today we're going to look at chapters 7 and 8. So if you will, sit back, get comfortable, and let's embark on this storybook adventure. Chapter 7. One Friday evening at the end of a mild, sunny December day, Anne went out to Lowville to attend a turkey supper. Wilfred Bryce's home was in Lowville, where he lived with an uncle, and he had asked her shyly if she would go out with him after school and go to the turkey supper in the church and spend Saturday at his home. Anne agreed, hoping that she might be able to influence the uncle to let Wilfred keep on going to high school. Wilfred was afraid that he would not be able to go back after New Year. He was a clever, ambitious boy, and Anne felt a special interest in him. It could not be said that she enjoyed her visit overmuch, except in the pleasure it gave Wilfred. His uncle and aunt were a rather odd and uncouth pair. Saturday morning was windy and dark, with showers of snow, and at first Anne wondered how she was going to put in the day. She felt tired and sleepy after the late hours of the turkey supper. Wilfred had to help thrash, and there was not even a book in sight. Then she thought of the battered old seaman's chest she had seen in the back of the hall upstairs and recalled Miss Stanton's request. Mrs. Stanton was writing a history of Prince County, and had asked Anne if she knew of or could find any old diaries or documents that might be helpful. The Pringles, of course, have lots that I could use, she told Anne, but I can't ask them. You know the Pringles and Stantons have never been friends. Well, I can't ask them either, unfortunately, said Anne. Oh, I'm not expecting you to. All I want is for you to keep your eyes open when you're visiting around in other people's homes, and if you find or hear of any old diaries or maps or anything like that, try to get them on loan for me. You have no idea what interesting things I have found in old diaries. Little bits of real life that make the old pioneers live again. I want to get things like that for my book, as well as statistics and genealogical tables. Anne asked Mrs. Bryce if they had any such old records, and Miss Bryce shook her head. Not as I knows on. In course, brightening up, there's old Uncle Andy's chist up there. There might be something in it. He used to sail with old Captain Abraham Pringle. I'll go out and ask Duncan if you can root in it. Duncan sent word back that she could root in it all she liked, and if she found any documents, she could have them. Documents, spelled D-O-C-K-Y-M-I-N-T-S, documents. He'd been meaning to burn the whole contents anyway and take the chest for a toolbox. Anne accordingly rooted, but all she found was a yellow, old diary or log which Andy Bryce seemed to have kept all through his years at sea. Anne beguiled the stormy forenoon away by reading it with interest and amusement. Andy was learned in sea lore and had gone on many voyages with Captain Abraham Pringle, whom he evidently admired immensely. The diary was full of ill-spelled, ungrammatical tributes to the captain's courage and resourcefulness, especially in one wild enterprise of beating round the Horn. But his admiration had not, it seemed, extended to Abraham's brother, Myram, who was also a captain, but of a different ship. Up to Myram Pringle's tonight, his wife made him mad, and up and throwed a glass of water in her face. Myron is home. His ship was burned, and they took to the boats. Nearly starved. In the end, they ate up Jonas Selkirk, who had shot himself. They lived on him till the Mary G. picked them up. Ugh. Myron told me this himself. Seemed to think it's a good joke. Anne shivered over this last entry, which seemed all the more horrifying for Andy's unimpassioned statement of the grim facts. Then she fell into a reverie. There was nothing in the book that could be of any use to Mrs. Stanton, but wouldn't Miss Sarah and Miss Ellen be interested in it since it contained so much about their adored old father? Suppose she sent it to them. Duncan Bryce had said she could do as she liked with it. No, she wouldn't. Why should she try to please them or cater to their absurd pride, which was great enough now without any more food? They had set themselves to drive her out of the school, and they were succeeding. They and their clan had beaten her. Wilfred took her back to Windy Poplars that evening, both of them feeling happy. Anne had talked Duncan Bryce into letting Wilfred finish out his year in high school. Then I'll manage Queens for a year, and after that teach and educate myself, said Wilfred. How can I ever repay you, Miss Shirley? Uncle wouldn't have listened to anyone else, but he likes you. He said to me out in the barn, red-haired women could always do what they liked with me. But I don't think it was your hair, Miss Shirley, although it is so beautiful. It was just you. At 2 o'clock that night, Anne woke up and decided that she would send Andy Bryce's diary to Maplehurst. After all, she had a bit of liking for the old ladies, and they had so little to make life warm, only their pride in their father. At 3, she woke again and decided she wouldn't. Miss Sarah pretending to be deaf indeed. At 4, she was in the Swithers again. Finally, she determined she would send it to them. She wouldn't be petty. Anne had a horror of being petty, like the pies. Having settled this, Anne went to sleep for keeps, thinking how lovely it was to wake up in the night and hear the first snowstorm of the winter around your tower, and then snuggle down in your blankets and drift into dreamland again. Monday morning, she wrapped up the old diary carefully and sent it to Miss Sarah with a little note. Dear Miss Pringle, I wonder if you would be interested in this old diary. Mr. Bryce gave it to me from Miss Stanton, who was writing a history of the county, but I don't think it would be of any use to her, and I thought you might like to have it. Yours sincerely, Anne Shirley. That's a horribly stiff note, thought Anne, but I can't write naturally to them, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they sent it haughtily back to me. In the fine blue of the early winter evening, Rebecca Dew got the shock of her life. The Maplehurst carriage drove along Spook's Lane over the powdery snow and stopped at the front gate. Miss Ellen got out of it, and then, to everyone's amazement, Miss Sarah, who had not left Maplehurst for 10 years. They're coming to the front door, gasped Rebecca Dew, panic-stricken. Well, where else would a Pringle come to? Asked Aunt Kate. Of course. But it sticks, said Rebecca tragically. It does stick. You know it does. And if it hasn't been opened since we house-cleaned last spring, this is the last straw. The front door did stick, but Rebecca Dew wrenched it open with desperate violence and showed the Maplehurst ladies into the parlor. Thank heaven we've had a fire in it today, she thought, and all I hope is that cat hasn't haired up the sofa. If Sarah Pringle got cat hairs on her dress in our parlor, Rebecca Dew dared not imagine the consequences. She called Anne from the tower room, Miss Sarah having asked if Miss Shirley were in, and then betook herself to the kitchen, half mad with curiosity as to what on earth was bringing the old Pringle girls to see Miss Shirley. If there's any more persecution in the wind, said Rebecca Dew darkly. Anne herself descended with considerable trepidation. Had they come to return the diary with icy scorn? It was little, wrinkled, inflexible Miss Sarah who rose and spoke without preamble when Anne entered the room. We have come to capitulate, she said bitterly. We can do nothing else. Of course you knew that when you found that scandalous entry about poor Uncle Myram. It wasn't true. It couldn't be true. Uncle Myram was just taking a rise out of Andy Bryce. Andy was so credulous. But everyone outside of our family will be glad to believe it. You knew it would make us all a laughing stock, and worse. Oh, you are very clever. We admit that. Jen will apologize and behave herself in the future. I, Sarah Pringle, assure you of that. If you will only promise not to tell Miss Stanton, not to tell anyone, We will do anything. Anything. Miss Sarah wrung her fine lace handkerchief in her light blue veined hands. She was literally trembling. Anne stared in amazement. And horror. The poor old darlings. They thought she had been threatening them. "Oh, you've misunderstood me dreadfully," she exclaimed, taking Miss Sarah's poor, piteous hands. I never dreamed you would think I was trying to... Oh, it was just because I thought you would like to have all those interesting details about your splendid father. I never dreamed of showing or telling that other little item to anyone. I didn't think it was of the least importance, and I never will." There was a moment's silence. Then Miss Sarah freed her hands gently, put her handkerchief to her eyes, and sat down, with a faint blush on her fine, wrinkled face. We have misunderstood you, my dear, and we've been abominable to you. Will you forgive us?" Half an hour later, a half hour which nearly was the death of Rebecca Dew, the Mrs. Pringles went away. It had been a half hour of friendly chat and discussion about the non-combustible items of Andy's diary. At the front door, Miss Sarah, who had not had the least trouble with her hearing during the interview, turned back for a moment and took a bit of paper covered with very fine, sharp writing from her reticule. "I had almost forgotten. We promised McLean our recipe for pound cake some time ago. Perhaps you won't mind handing it to her. And tell her the sweating process is very important. Quite indispensable, indeed. Ellen, your bonnet is slightly over one ear. You'd better adjust it before we leave. We were somewhat agitated while dressing." Anne told the widows and Rebecca Dew that she had been given Andy Bryce's old diary to the ladies of Maplehurst, and that they had come to thank her for it. With this explanation, they had to be contented, although Rebecca Dew always felt that there was more behind it than that. Much more. Gratitude for an old, faded, tobacco-stained diary would never have brought Sarah Pringle to the front door of Windy Poplars. Miss Shirley was deep, very deep. "I'm going to open that front door once a day after this," vowed Rebecca, "just to keep it in practice." I all but went over flat when it did give away. Well, we've got the recipe for the pound cake anyway. 36 eggs! If you dispose of that cat and let me keep hens, we might be able to afford it once a year. Whereupon Rebecca Dew marched to the kitchen and got square with fate by giving that cat milk when she knew he wanted liver. The Shirley Pringle feud was over. Nobody outside of the Pringles ever knew why, but Summerside people understood that Miss Shirley, single-handed, had in some mysterious way routed the whole clan, who ate out of her hand from then on. Jen came back to school the next day and apologized meekly to Anne before the whole room. She was a model pupil thereafter, and every Pringle student followed her lead. As for the adult Pringles, their antagonism vanished like mist before the sun. There were no more complaints regarding discipline or homework. No more of the fine, subtle snubs characteristic of the ilk. They fairly fell over one another trying to be nice to Anne. No dance or skating party was complete without her. For although the fatal diary had been committed to the flames by Miss Sarah herself, memory was memory, and Miss Shirley had a tale to tell if she chose to tell it. It would never do to have that nosy Mrs. Stanton know that Captain Miriam Pringle had been a cannibal. Chapter 8. Extract from Letter to Gilbert. I'm in my tower, and Rebecca Dew is caroling "Could I But Climb" in the kitchen, which reminds me that the minister's wife has asked me to sing in the choir. Of course the Pringles have told her to do it. I may do it on the Sundays I don't spend at Green Gables. The Pringles have held out the right hand of fellowship with a vengeance, accepted me, lock, stock, and barrel. What a clan! I've been to the Pringles parties, and I set nothing down in malice, but I think all the Pringle girls are imitating my style of hairdressing. Well, imitation is the sincerest flattery, And Gilbert, I'm really liking them, as I always knew I would if they would give me a chance. I'm even beginning to suspect that sooner or later I'll find myself liking Jen. She can be charming when she wants to be, and it's very evident she wants to be. Last night I bearded the lion in his den. In other words, I went boldly up the front steps of the evergreens to the square porch with the 4 whitewashed urns in its corner and rang the bell. When Miss Monkman came to the door, I asked her if she could lend little Elizabeth for me for a walk. I expected a refusal, but after the woman had gone in and conferred with Miss Campbell, she came back and said dourly that Elizabeth could go, but please, I wasn't to keep her out late. I wonder if even Miss Campbell has got her orders from Miss Sarah. Elizabeth came dancing down the dark stairway, looking like a pixie in a red coat and a little green cap, and almost speechless for joy. I feel all squirmy and excited, Miss Shirley, she whispered as soon as we got away. I'm Betty. I'm always Betty when I feel like that. We went as far down the road that leads to the end of the world as we dared, and then back. Tonight, the harbor, lying dark under a crimson sunset, seemed full of implications of fairylands forlorn and mysterious isles in uncharted seas. I thrilled to it, and so did the mite I held by the hand. If we ran hard, Miss Shirley, we could get into the sunset. She wanted to. If we ran hard, Miss Shirley, could we get into the sunset? She wanted to know. I remembered Paul and his fancies about the sunset land. We must wait for tomorrow before we can do that, I said. Look, Elizabeth, at that golden island of cloud just over the harbor mouth. Let's pretend that is your island of happiness. There is an island down there somewhere, said Elizabeth dreamily. Its name is Flying Cloud. Isn't that a lovely name? A name just out of tomorrow? I can see it from the garret windows. It belongs to a gentleman from Boston, and he has a summer home there, but I pretend it's mine. At the door, I stooped and kissed Elizabeth's cheeks before she went in. I shall never forget her eyes, Gilbert. That child is just starved for love. Tonight, when she came over for her milk, I saw that she had been crying. They made me wash your kiss off, Miss Shirley, she sobbed. I didn't want ever to wash my face again. I vowed I wouldn't, because you see, I didn't want to wash your kiss off. I got away to school this morning without doing it, but tonight the woman just took me and scrubbed it off. I kept a straight face. You couldn't go through life without washing your face occasionally, darling, but never mind about the kiss. I'll kiss you every night when you come for the milk, and then it won't matter if it's washed off the next morning. You are the only person who loves me in the world, said Elizabeth. When you talk to me, I smell violets. Was anybody ever paid a prettier compliment? But I couldn't quite let the first sentence pass. Your grandmother loves you, Elizabeth. She doesn't. She hates me. You're just a wee bit foolish, darling. Your grandmother and Miss Monkman are both old people, and old people are easily disturbed and worried. Of course you annoy them sometimes. And, of course, when they were young, children were brought up much more strictly than they are now. They cling to the old way. But I felt I was not convincing Elizabeth. After all, they don't love her, and she knows it. She looked carefully back at the house to see if the door was shut. Then she said deliberately, Grandmother and the woman are just 2 old tyrants, and when tomorrow comes, I'm going to escape them forever. I think she expected I'd die of horror. I really suspect Elizabeth said it just to make a sensation. I merely laughed and kissed her. I hope Martha Monkman saw it from the kitchen window. I can see over Summerside from the left window in the tower. Just now it is a huddle of friendly white roofs. Friendly at last, since the Pringles are my friends. Here and there a light is gleaming in gable and dormer. Here and there is a suggestion of gray ghost smoke. Thick stars are low over it all. It is a dreaming town. Isn't that a lovely phrase? You remember, Galahad through dreaming towns did go. I feel so happy, Gilbert. I won't have to go home to Green Gables at Christmas, defeated and discredited. Life is good. Good. So is Miss Sarah's pound cake. Rebecca Dew made one and sweated it according to directions. which simply means that she wrapped it in several thickness of brown paper and several more towels and left it for 3 days. I can recommend it. Are there or are there not 2 C's in recommend? In spite of the fact that I am a BA, I can never be certain. Fancy if the Pringles had discovered that before I found Andy's diary. Well, thank you for joining me for this storybook adventure. I hope you enjoyed those 2 chapters as much as I did. And I look forward to seeing you this Sunday for the next storybook adventure. And until then, be joyful and be the joy in everything you do. Nugs and joy. I'll see you on Sunday.